Vanguard thinks that most households earning less than $173,000 per year are at risk of running out of money in retirement. I usually don't do public math, but that's basically everyone. And we need to come up with another term for households because according to this Spaceballs-looking villain, in the future, no one is going to be owning a home and we're all going to be eating bugs. So let's take a look at why Vanguard thinks most people are going to run out of money and if there is anything that you can do to avoid the problem before it's too late. If you want to check out the whole research paper, then here is the full title for you. Instead of looking at the total population to determine retirement readiness, Vanguard took the median worker in different income cohorts, then broke it down by different groups within generations to get an idea of where everyone is going to be by the time they retire at 65. Vanguard uses two different pieces of data to assess the financial health of these people in the future. First, the resources households will need in retirement, and second, the resources they are projected to have by the time they retire. Once we've identified these two things, we can determine their shortfall in any of these groups to come up with different strategies to close that gap. Besides licking your finger and putting it up in the air, there's two main ways people figure out how much they're going to need for retirement: prescriptive and descriptive. The prescriptive method is determined by figuring out what standard of living you want in retirement based on your pre-retirement income to come up with what's called a target replacement ratio. Target replacement ratio is the percentage of current income you're going to need to replace to be able to live comfortably in retirement. So if you currently take home, say, $100,000 per year and think that you can get away with spending $80,000 per year in retirement, then your TRR would be 80% of your pre-retirement income. You're going to hear a lot of people in the financial industry suggest using anywhere between 70 and 85%. The second way to determine how much you need for retirement is the descriptive method. It's where you determine the amount that you need based on pre- and post-retirement consumption. Since you are starting by calculating consumption, it's a more accurate way to come up with a number. This method is going to give most people a more positive and achievable outlook, since the amount that you need tends to be a little bit lower when you compare it to the prescriptive method. For this retirement outlook report, Vanguard uses a hybrid approach combining both methods as well as data from multiple sources to create profiles of income, savings, behavior, asset allocations, and social security benefits. If you're curious, later in the video, I'll share with you how I personally plan for retirement as a do-it-yourself investor. Vanguard's baseline analysis assumes that retirees depend solely on social security, pensions, employer-sponsored retirement accounts, and that they are going to retire at the age of 65. It doesn't look like they accounted for non-employer-sponsored retirement accounts like a Roth IRA, which would improve retirement outlook by a little bit, so keep that in mind when I go through these numbers. I say a little better because when I looked at the data earlier this year for a video, less than 33% of households had an IRA. That is not good, especially since it's my second favorite investment account. The key output Vanguard is looking for when combining all of this data is what's called the sustainable replacement rate, which is the percentage of pre-retirement income that can be sustained in 90% of their market return and mortality scenarios. As you can imagine, people who have a lower income are going to need to have a higher sustainable replacement rate, and people with a higher income are going to have a lower sustainable replacement rate. Looking at the group of people with a median income of $22,000, they have spending needs that make up 96% of pre-retirement income per year, or roughly $21,120. Based on how much they have now in Vanguard's projections, they're going to have sustainable replacement rates of 64, 63, and 64% by the time they retire at 65. Definitely not enough to meet their future needs. Keep in mind that this sustainable replacement rate accounts for employer-sponsored retirement accounts, pensions, and Social Security. So even combining all of that together, it's not enough. If no changes are made, then by age 65, the individuals in these groups are going to have a retirement savings gap of 32 and 33%. The next cohort of people have a median income of $42,000 with spending needs of 83% of that, which is a little under $35,000. Their sustainable replacement rate is a little better based on their spending needs, but they still have a savings gap that needs to be addressed. In a few minutes, we'll cover how much different changes can close these gaps, but the baby boomers in this group have very little time left to make an impact. Millennials and Gen X, on the other hand, still have opportunities, but the window is closing extremely quickly. People with the $61,000 income will have spending needs that account for 68% of their pre-retirement income. Check this out. The sustainable replacement rates for Gen X and baby boomers in this income group only increased by 1% when compared to their counterparts at the $42,000 income level. Starting with this cohort of millennials, we see that their savings gap is only 2% off, which is great. It should absolutely be pretty easy to do a few things to close that gap. For all of you weirdos out there that dislike people who make good money, prepare to be triggered. The group that has an income of $173,000 have spending needs that account for 43% of their pre-retirement income. Because their spending needs are a lower percent of their income, their sustainable replacement rates are well above their needs, which means that they're going to have some disposable income in retirement. Before I show you how to boost your retirement readiness, please help support my little dog Molly as well as this channel by hitting that thumbs up button. She is my little shadow, so of course she's laying back here behind me taking a nap. As I mentioned before, there are some ways to boost your retirement readiness by increasing your sustainable replacement rate according to Vanguard. The first way is to get married and divorced a few times to people who make more money than you. As long as you get half of everything each time, then you should be in a pretty good spot by the time you retire. Vanguard didn't say this in their study, and I don't recommend it, but it is an option. Another thing Vanguard didn't specifically call out in their report, but seems like a pretty obvious way to increase your sustainable replacement rate is by increasing your savings rate. While you could do this through cutting out expenses, and that should be your first step, focusing on increasing your income is going to be the best use of your time and energy. Looking back at folks pulling in $173,000 a year, it's pretty clear they'll have plenty of extra spending money in retirement just based on the least amount that they can get away with. The people making $22,000 per year that spend 96% of that in retirement literally can't cut back much more at all. Savings rate with an emphasis on the income side of things should be more of a focus than wasting your time cutting back in nonsensical ways like, I don't know, driving around to save a few cents at the gas station. The next way Vanguard found to increase your sustainable replacement rate was to find a way to access your home equity. Here are the average savings gaps by generation and the percentage point increase these individuals would see by tapping their home equity. There's a couple of ways to execute on the idea that your home is a spendable asset. The first is to sell your home, become a lifelong renter, then take all of the money from the sale and invest it. While this is an option, I'm not convinced that very many people actually do this if they don't have to, but it is an option. The second option would be a reverse mortgage where you can draw tax-free money while you live there. A study from 2019 found that less than 2% of people 62 or older do this, so it's unlikely you'll be in this boat, but once again, it is an option. The third way to tap home equity is to downsize or relocate to a lower cost housing market. This is of course very dependent on family, the state you live in, and surrounding areas within that specific state. Here's a map Vanguard shared in their analysis. A positive number means potential home equity extraction, whereas a negative number means potential injection. Looking at it from the extreme side of things, if you sold your home in California and moved to any other part of the country, you'd be more likely to convert home equity to cash as an option to fund retirement. But this is also true based on the city that you live in within your current state, so it's not always necessary to move states to tap into your home equity for retirement. Maybe you can, I don't know, move 1 or 2 counties away to make this happen. Now, if you're like,
Jarrad, I plan on being a lifelong renter and eating bugs in the future. And plus, did you see how much home prices are? There's no way I can ever afford one of those things.
Then another way to increase your retirement readiness is to work beyond the age of 65. Adding just 1 year to this can close your retirement savings gap by 3 to 4% depending on which generation you fall into. If you increase that to 2 or 3 years, then your sustainable replacement rate increases even more. Pushing out retirement can also increase your Social Security benefit as well, because the longer you wait to claim it, the more money you're going to get. Vanguard noted that at this point, if you wait to claim Social Security until 70, your benefit would be 25% higher, which is huge for some people. They also said that while we modeled the impact of working a single additional year beyond 65, the impact of multiple additional years is not linear, but rather increases to a greater extent when workers hit their full retirement age or 70. If you happen to be one of the lucky ones who has better than expected stock market returns, then you can close your retirement savings gap by 2 or 3 percentage points. This has more to do with random luck, when you were born, and when you start investing, which I talk about in this video, but it is something to keep in mind. On the other hand, if you happen to be one of the unlucky ones on the wrong side of luck and you happen to get lower than expected stock market returns, then that will have a negative effect on your savings gap. Another part of this whole thing that can have a negative effect in your savings gap is if Social Security is cut. If it happens to be cut by 23%, then you can see how much that increases the savings gap from generation to generation. Congress needs to do something about Social Security because it's going to be in a bad spot at some point in the future. They do enjoy kicking the can down the road with everything, so don't expect anything to happen until it's too late. I've mentioned before how I don't think this is going to impact people in or close to retirement, but for us younger people, I can see it being cut. How much will it be cut by? Who knows? Don't ask me. This is why I always try to push people to save and invest more than what is recommended by the traditional finance industry. We have zero clue what the heck is going to happen in the future, so the only way to hedge your bets against those unknowns is to save and invest more today. If you notice you are in a good spot as you move closer to retirement, then take your foot off the gas a little bit, but don't do it until you feel pretty confident. It's better to have saved too much than not enough. No one is complaining about oversaving for retirement, but I guarantee you, everyone is complaining about undersaving for retirement. Right now, I'm personally oversaving. And the reason I know that is because I have projected all of my finances out into the future using retirement planning software geared more towards do-it-yourself investors. It's called New Retirement. I stumbled across it about 2 months ago and instantly fell in love. The detail they allow you to go into is mind-blowing and makes me feel 100 times more comfortable with the path that I'm on towards retirement. They do offer a free version, but the price of the paid version is insanely cost-effective, which is why that's the one that I went with. If you want to check it out, even just the free version, then I'll have a link in the description to do so. Just a heads up that it does help support the channel as well as my dog Molly when you open a paid account through that link at no extra cost to you. But to be honest with you, as with all of my other partnerships, I would recommend them even if they didn't pay me. YouTube thinks that you should watch this video to your left and next. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button to help support the channel before you go. I'll see you in the next one, friends. Done.